The towering marble columns of the Manhattan courthouse gleamed under the morning sun as a stream of suited attorneys, journalists, and curious onlookers filtered inside. It was a day that would etch itself into the history books, though few realized it at the time. At the center of the storm was Barron Trump, the youngest son of the sitting president of the United States, Donald Trump. Barron, now a tall, sharp-featured 19-year-old, had grown up in the unforgiving spotlight of American politics. Unlike his brash father, Barron had a quiet, calculating demeanor, more often seen in a library than on a golf course. While his father's tweets made headlines, Barron preferred the sharp, precise language of legal journals. He had recently completed his first year at Harvard Law, where his professors often whispered that he had a natural talent for legal reasoning far beyond his years. But today, the stakes were different. Barron had come to court not as a student but as a defendant in a highly publicized case involving a tech startup he had co-founded. His company, Quantum Core, had developed a revolutionary AI system capable of predicting market trends with stunning accuracy, drawing the attention of both Wall Street titans and government regulators. A powerful rival firm, not pleased with the disruption Barron's technology posed to their business, had used its deep pockets and political connections to launch a full-scale legal assault, alleging that Quantum Core had used proprietary data without consent. As Barron entered the courtroom, he felt the collective gaze of the room settle on him. He straightened his navy blue suit and gave a nod to his small team of attorneys. They had advised him to stay in the background to let the professionals handle the case, but Barron had insisted on being involved directly. He was not just a figurehead for his company, he was its heart and mind. Seated at the bench, Judge William Harding, a stout, silver-haired figure with a reputation for being unsympathetic to tech startups, peered over his glasses at the young Trump. Harding had a long history of being skeptical of tech whiz kids and, perhaps more pointedly, anyone bearing the Trump name. He leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing as Barron approached the defendant's table. As the proceedings began, the plaintiff's attorney, a seasoned litigator named Mark Dresden, took the floor. He wasted no time, launching into a scathing opening statement designed to paint Quantum Core as a reckless, rule-breaking startup led by an inexperienced young man riding on his father's name. "Ladies and gentlemen," Dresden boomed, his voice filling the cavernous courtroom, "what we have here is a classic case of a privileged kid using his father's influence to skirt the rules. Barron Trump may be a student at Harvard Law, but he clearly lacks the experience and judgment required to run a company without violating the rights of others." Barron sat silently, his face betraying no emotion as Dresden continued his verbal assault. But those who knew him well, including his few close friends in the back of the courtroom, could see the wheels turning in his mind. He was calculating, processing every word, every argument, like a chess player anticipating his opponent's next move. When Dresden finished his opening remarks, he turned back to his seat with a satisfied smirk, certain he had set the tone for the case. The judge leaned forward, his lips curling into a slight smile as he looked directly at Barron. "Mr. Trump," Judge Harding said, his tone dripping with a mixture of skepticism and mild amusement, "I hope you have a solid defense. Otherwise, this might be a very short trial." For a brief moment, the courtroom fell silent, and then a ripple of laughter moved through the audience. Barron, however, remained calm, his gaze fixed on the judge, his mind already formulating his response. He knew that the path to victory would not be easy, but he also knew something his opponents did not. He had a plan, and it was about to catch them all off guard. As the murmurs in the courtroom died down, Barron Trump slowly rose from his seat. The tall, poised figure of the young Trump cut a striking image against the polished wood of the defense table. He straightened his shoulders, adjusted his tie, and approached the podium. His face was calm, his movements deliberate, a stark contrast to the smug confidence radiating from Dresden's corner. "Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the court," Barron began, his voice clear and steady, cutting through the tense air. "I may be young and I may not have decades of courtroom experience like my esteemed colleague, but what I lack in years, I make up for in preparation and understanding of the facts at hand." Judge Harding leaned back in his chair, his skeptical smile fading as he caught the sharp, almost surgical precision in Barron's tone. The young man wasn't just delivering a defense, he was constructing an argument as methodically as an architect laying the foundation for a skyscraper. "My company, Quantum Core, developed our algorithms independently," Barron continued, locking eyes with the judge. "The accusations of data theft are not just inaccurate, they are fundamentally flawed. Our AI is built on publicly available financial data and proprietary algorithms that my team and I painstakingly developed from scratch. Every line of code, every data point, every prediction crafted within the bounds of the law. Dresden's confident smile began to waver. He had not expected this level of composure, this depth of understanding from a defendant so young. Barron wasn't just parroting legal jargon, he genuinely understood the technical and legal underpinnings of his defense. Furthermore, Barron said, pausing for a moment as he let his words settle, I have documentation proving that the core algorithms of Quantum Core predate any alleged data breaches by several months. This documentation is not just internal but verified by third-party auditors. In fact, I have here a certified timeline of our software's development, complete with version histories and independent verification. He reached down, pulling a thick binder from his briefcase and placing it firmly on the defense table. The sound of its impact echoed through the silent courtroom, a physical manifestation of the weight of his evidence. Additionally, we conducted a full audit of our code base prior to the release of our platform, specifically to ensure compliance with all relevant data privacy laws, Barron continued, flipping open the binder to a marked section. I can produce not just emails, but server logs, development records, and signed affidavits from every member of our programming team, affirming that no proprietary data from any outside source was ever used. A low murmur swept through the gallery as journalists scribbled furiously in their notepads. Judge Harding's eyebrows furrowed slightly as he glanced down at the thick binder on the table. He had underestimated the young Trump, and it was becoming increasingly clear that this was not just a public relations stunt, but a calculated, strategic defense. Barron's voice grew more confident as he sensed the shift in the room. Your Honor, the plaintiffs have painted a picture of a reckless, inexperienced entrepreneur riding on his father's coattails. But what they fail to understand is that I take the law seriously. I respect the principles of intellectual property and data privacy, not just because it's the law, but because it's the right thing to do. Dresden shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his jaw tightening as he realized that his opponent was not just a young upstart, but a formidable legal mind in his own right. Barron's words had turned the momentum of the trial. His calm, precise delivery cutting through Dresden's carefully constructed narrative like a scalpel. And finally, Barron said, locking eyes with the judge once more, I believe in the integrity of this court. I trust that the evidence will speak for itself, and that justice will prevail. He stepped back from the podium, his expression unreadable, and took his seat. The room remained silent for a moment, the weight of his words lingering in the air. Judge Harding slowly leaned forward, tapping his fingers thoughtfully against the polished wood of his desk. He had expected a simple case, a quick and easy victory for the plaintiffs, but now, for the first time, he wondered if he had misjudged the young Trump. The next day in court, the atmosphere was noticeably different. The initial whispers of doubt that had surrounded Barron Trump had given way to a sense of cautious curiosity. The young man had held his ground against a seasoned litigator, and now, as the trial resumed, the eyes of the nation were once again upon him. Judge Harding entered the courtroom with a more measured expression, his initial skepticism tempered by the surprising strength of Barron's opening defense. He tapped his gavel, signaling the court back into session. Mr. Dresden, the judge said, his tone carrying a hint of challenge, I trust you're ready to present your evidence today? Dresden stood, his jaw set, eyes locked on Barron as he stepped forward. Of course, Your Honor, he replied, regaining his earlier confidence. The defense may have presented a compelling story, but the facts will show that Quantum Core's success was built on a foundation of stolen data. He gestured to a large screen set up beside the jury box. I'd like to direct the court's attention to Exhibit A series of internal emails obtained through discovery which clearly show a pattern of questionable data acquisition practices within Quantum Core. As the screen flickered to life, a series of emails appeared, their bold subject lines and timestamps displayed prominently. The first email, dated nearly a year before Quantum Core's public launch, seemed to suggest a close relationship between the startup's early data models and the proprietary algorithms of a major Wall Street firm. Notice here, Dresden said, highlighting a line from one of the emails where a Quantum Core engineer explicitly references using a proven financial model from a known industry leader. This, Your Honor, is the smoking gun. Proof that the defendant's success was built on theft. Barron remained calm, his eyes fixed on the screen as the jury leaned in, their interest peaked. He had anticipated this line of attack and he was ready. When Dresden finally returned to his seat, clearly satisfied with his display, Barron leaned over to his lead attorney, a sharp-minded woman in her 40s named Jessica Langston. She gave a slight nod, understanding his unspoken request. Barron rose once again, buttoning his suit jacket as he approached the podium. "Your Honor," he began, his tone calm yet firm, "while Mr. Dresden's exhibit may seem damning at first glance, I would urge this court to examine these emails in their full context." He took a deep breath, his mind racing through the countless hours he had spent preparing for this very moment. "First, I'd like to point out that the emails presented by the plaintiff are cherry-picked fragments of much larger conversations, many of which involved hypothetical discussions about financial models, not actual code or proprietary data." Judge Harding leaned forward, intrigued. Barron gestured to his own laptop connected to the same screen. "If I may, Your Honor, I'd like to present Exhibit B, a full transcript of the email chain Mr. Dresden just referenced." With a tap of his keyboard, the screen changed to reveal the complete series of messages, including several additional emails that Dresden had conveniently omitted. Barron's voice grew more confident as he highlighted a particular exchange between two quantum core engineers. "In this section, you'll notice a clear discussion about building our algorithms from scratch using only public financial data sets," Barron said, his pointer tracing the lines of text. "At no point does anyone in my company suggest using proprietary information from another firm. In fact, this email specifically states we should avoid any overlap with existing financial models to protect ourselves legally." Dresden shifted in his seat, his earlier smugness slipping away. Barron didn't stop there. He brought up a second series of emails, this time between himself and the head of his data science team. "And here," Barron continued, "you'll see a detailed technical discussion about the unique mathematical models we developed for quantum core, including timestamped records of our code base, which clearly predates any alleged data breaches." Judge Harding's eyes narrowed as he studied the new evidence on the screen. He leaned back, crossing his arms as he considered the implications. The young Trump had not just countered the plaintiff's accusations, he had turned them on their head, revealing a critical flaw in their case. Barron returned to his seat, his heart pounding but his face calm. He had struck the first blow and the tide was beginning to turn in his favor. He knew the battle was far from over, but for the first time, the scales of justice seemed to tip ever so slightly in his direction. As the courtroom settled into an uneasy silence, Judge Harding leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on Barron. The young Trump had managed to counter Dresden's initial assault with a level of precision that had clearly caught the veteran attorney off guard. Dresden's face, once smug and self-assured, now betrayed the subtle cracks of frustration. "Mr. Trump," the judge said, his tone more measured, perhaps even impressed, "you've managed to cast doubt on the plaintiff's narrative, but that alone isn't enough. You still need to address the core allegation that your company relied on proprietary data without permission. Do you have more evidence to support your claim?" Barron nodded, his expression unreadable. He had been waiting for this moment, the chance to shift the trial's momentum fully in his favor. Rising from his seat, he approached the podium once more, feeling the weight of the entire courtroom's gaze upon him. "Your Honor," Barron began, his voice steady, "I believe it's time to present the heart of our defense, a technical demonstration that will prove beyond any doubt that quantum core's algorithms are not only original, but mathematically distinct from any existing models in the financial sector." He paused, allowing the anticipation to build. Even the jury members leaned in, their curiosity piqued. Barron tapped a key on his laptop, bringing up a series of complex, color-coded graphs and mathematical formulas on the large screen beside the jury box. "These," Barron said, gesturing to the screen, "are the foundational equations that drive quantum core's predictive algorithms. They are based on a unique approach to market analysis that my team and I developed, drawing on publicly available financial data and cutting-edge machine learning techniques. We did not, at any point, rely on proprietary data from our competitors." He pointed to a particularly dense cluster of equations. "This section here, our core model, was developed using a method known as fractal market analysis, which, for the record, predates the very existence of the companies accusing us of data theft. In fact, we have academic papers, some written by members of my team, that document the development of these algorithms as early as 5 years ago." Judge Harding adjusted his glasses, his eyes narrowing as he absorbed the information on the screen. Barron pressed on, his confidence building with each passing second. "But I'm not asking you to take my word for it," Barron continued, turning to the jury. I have here an independent analysis conducted by Professor Emily Hahn, a leading expert in machine learning from MIT who has reviewed our code line by line. Her findings confirm that our algorithms are entirely original and bear no resemblance to the proprietary models claimed by the plaintiff. He pulled a sealed envelope from his briefcase, stepping forward to hand it to the court clerk. This is a signed affidavit from Professor Hahn along with a detailed technical breakdown of her analysis. I request that it be entered into evidence. The clerk took the envelope and Judge Harding leaned forward, his curiosity clearly piqued. Dresden's jaw tightened, his eyes fixed on the envelope as if it were a live grenade. But that's not all, Barron added, turning back to the screen. We also conducted a line-by-line audit of our code base, cross-referencing every function and algorithm against known proprietary models. The results? 0 matches. Not a single line of code in Quantum Core's platform has been copied from any existing proprietary system. A hush fell over the room. Even the journalists, typically quick to scribble down every twist and turn, seemed momentarily stunned into silence. Barron allowed himself a slight, satisfied smile as he glanced back at Dresden, whose face had turned a shade paler. He had not only disarmed the central accusation of the case, but he had done so with a level of technical precision that left little room for rebuttal. Returning to his seat, Barron met the eyes of his lead attorney, Jessica Langston, who gave him a brief, approving nod. They both knew that the tide had fully turned. Dresden's carefully constructed narrative of a reckless, privileged kid riding on his father's coattails had been shattered by the cold, hard math of Barron's defense. For the first time since the trial had begun, Barron felt the weight on his shoulders lighten just a bit. He still had much to prove, but the path to victory was becoming clearer with each passing moment. As the final day of the trial arrived, the air in the courtroom felt charged, every seat filled, the gallery buzzing with anticipation. Reporters had gathered from every major network, their cameras trained on the door through which Barron Trump would soon enter. The young Trump had become a sensation, his surprising legal acumen transforming what many had predicted to be a swift defeat into a dramatic showdown. Barron stepped into the courtroom, his tall frame cutting a confident silhouette against the bright morning light streaming through the high windows. He adjusted his navy suit, met his attorney's reassuring nod, and took his seat. Jessica Langston leaned over, whispering, "We've got them on the ropes. Just stick to the plan." Judge Harding banged his gavel, the sharp crack silencing the murmurs in the packed room. "Court is now in session," he announced, his tone a mixture of curiosity and caution. Even the usually unflappable judge had been drawn into the drama of this unlikely battle. Dresden, the opposing counsel, rose to deliver his final argument. He had abandoned his earlier bravado, his movements more cautious, his words less sharp. He knew the ground had shifted beneath his feet, but he was too seasoned to give up without a fight. "Your Honor," Dresden began, forcing a tight smile, "we've presented evidence that clearly suggests a pattern of reckless behavior by Quantum Core. While Mr. Trump's technical defenses are impressive, they do not fully address the broader ethical concerns raised by our case. We must not lose sight of the fact that this is about the integrity of our financial systems and the need for transparency." Barron listened patiently, his face a mask of calm as Dresden struggled to reframe his now crumbling narrative. When Dresden finally returned to his seat, his shoulders visibly sagging, Barron rose for what would be his final statement. He approached the podium, the eyes of the jury following his every step. For a brief moment, he paused, letting the silence stretch, drawing the full attention of the room. "Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury," Barron began, his voice clear and steady. "Throughout this trial, the plaintiffs have attempted to paint me as a reckless young entrepreneur, unfit to lead a tech company. They have tried to reduce my company's achievements to mere happenstance, the product of stolen data and unethical practices. But the evidence I have presented tells a very different story." He paused, letting his words sink in. "I have shown you the timelines, the technical audits, the third-party verifications, all of which confirm that Quantum Core's algorithms are original creations, developed within the bounds of the law. But more than that, I have demonstrated that our company stands on a foundation of innovation and integrity, not opportunism." Barron turned, facing the jury directly, his gaze intense but sincere. "I ask you not just to consider the legal arguments, but to look at the facts for what they are, a testament to the power of hard work, creativity, and the pursuit of knowledge. This is not just a case about code and data. It is a case about the future of innovation in this country and whether we will encourage the next generation to push the boundaries of what is possible or punish them for daring to dream. As he returned to his seat, Barron caught the eye of his father seated in the back of the courtroom. Donald Trump gave a small, approving nod, his expression a rare mixture of pride and respect. It was a brief, silent moment, but one that spoke volumes. The jury filed out to deliberate, the heavy wooden doors closing behind them with a resounding thud. The minutes ticked by, stretching into hours. The courtroom remained silent, every eye fixed on the doors, every breath held in anticipation. Finally, the jury returned, their faces carefully neutral as they took their seats. The foreperson rose, a small, folded piece of paper in her hand. She handed it to the court clerk, who passed it to Judge Harding. The judge's eyes scanned the note, his face revealing nothing as he looked up at the packed courtroom. In the matter of Quantum Core versus the plaintiffs, Judge Harding announced, his voice echoing off the marble walls, "We, the jury, find in favor of the defendant." A wave of relief swept over Barron, his shoulders relaxing for the first time in days. Applause broke out from the gallery, quickly silenced by a sharp bang of the judge's gavel. "This court is adjourned," Judge Harding said, a slight, almost reluctant smile playing at the corners of his mouth as he glanced at the young Trump one last time. As Barron stood to leave, his attorneys surrounding him with handshakes and backslaps of congratulations, he allowed himself a brief moment to take in the scene. The flashing cameras, the murmurs of the press, the stunned expression on Dresden's face. He had done it. He had not just defended his company, but had proven himself to the world. The boy who had once been dismissed as a mere extension of his father's controversial legacy had emerged as a force in his own right. A legal prodigy with the potential to change the world.